Do you have a beer or not?
No, I didn't. I could, yeah, maybe I will grab a beer. It will.
I was going to have a beer with you, but unfortunately, I have an assignment that I need to hand in at midnight, and I have a 3-hour Zoom to the USA after this.
Ah,
So I can't afford to have a beer. But if you want to have a
okay.
beer, that's fine. I know it's early for you, but up to you.
Yeah, but maybe it will relax a bit. I will have a one nearby just
Okay.
in case.
Okay, I'll give you a minute.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Alan Hill. In this podcast series of the Nostalgic Vagabond, we're talking travel, all kinds of travel, with all kinds of interesting people from all around the world. In conversation, we'll share personal anecdotes, tales of adventure, and maybe misadventure too. Listen in for some unique cultural perspectives, tips from seasoned veterans, and an array of diverse experiences that have contributed to many life-changing journeys. Travel really is a privilege. We know that now. And if we can't do it right this very moment, let's talk about it then. Hey, where are you right now?
On this episode of the Nostalgic Vagabond podcast, I talk with Morgane Thöni. Morgane is from France, but has moved to Canada where she works as a brewer in a rural brewery, kind of in the middle of nowhere, like a lot of Canada, one could argue. Being French, I expected Morgane to be into wines, but she's very much into beer, which is due perhaps to spending a lot of time in Germany, studying, travelling, and of course drinking. Morgane and I met in Liverpool about 5 years ago, when she was travelling with her friend and fellow beer enthusiast, Mickael. We enjoyed a real ale pub tour of the city, sampling many traditional and some unique beers. In conversation, Morgane shares a few places around the world, countries and specific regions she has visited, where she found the beer and culture to be interesting. We talk about beer tourism and how beer and culture might be related. Morgane shares of some particularly interesting experiences, in Norway for example, where they use juniper in their brewing process, which is unusual and something Morgane was intrigued by. Beer culture has exploded in the last decade or so, and now it's possible to get American-style IPA all over the place, these craft beers, and some bizarre beers, heavy beers made with lactose and marshmallow even, banana juice mixed with wheat beers, etc. It's pretty nuts. Morgane tells of some of her favourite places to enjoy a beer, typically outside, in a Biergarten, but she's also very happy to take a beer on the terrace at her work, and enjoy the view out to sea, providing it's not snowing, I suppose. Morgane shares the path which led her to becoming a brewer, and made it to holding her position at Pit Caribou in Quebec. She's one of the few female brewers in the industry, but this is changing along with the times. I was interested to hear what thoughts Morgane had on how travel can influence her brewing creatively, and how she sees beer culture and the simple act of enjoying a beer as a way of breaking down barriers and finding accessible means to get to know people and make friends all over the world. Anyways, let's get to the conversation.
Yeah, a regular blonde beer from my brewery.
What's the name?
Pit Caribou.
And is there a name for the actual type of beer, or it's just blonde?
This one is a Blonde de Lens because the brewery is situated in Lens à Beaufils.
Mm-hmm.
So Lens is it's like a bay. So this one is just the Blonde de Lens.
Blonde de Lens.
Oui.
By Pit Caribou.
Oui.
Nice. Welcome, Morgane Thöni, and thanks for coming on the Nostalgic Vagabond podcast.
Hi, my pleasure.
It's good to have you here, and can you tell me exactly where you are zooming in from right now?
I'm right now in Quebec, in Canada, and more precisely in the region of Gaspésie, in the far east of Quebec, along the Atlantic coast. And I have been living here for the past 2.5 years, from February 2019.
Quite a rural setting, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 12-hour drive from Montreal.
But Morgane, you're originally from Lyon, I understand, and this is a city quite famous for its gastronomie, like the food and drink that's famous from that region of France. So I was curious, how do you think living there in Lyon, growing up there, has influenced your ideas about the importance or the relationship between cuisine and culture?
Yeah, I definitely like eating, and I quite early I developed a taste and an interest for cooking and cuisine, not just from Lyon or France, but yeah, I like eating, and when I travel somewhere, I like to taste the specialties.
You're from France. You're now living in Canada, in the French part of Canada as well. But in my travels, Morgane, when I've come across French people in general, it's always been about wine.
Yeah.
But you really like beer. So why beer, and what is beer to you?
Yeah, I don't know much about wine, actually. I didn't like red wine until a few years ago. I grew up in the region of Beaujolais, but I'm really bad at recognizing the different types of wine or the grape varieties. But I was already interested in different fermented food products like cheese and bread. It's a bit cliche for a French person, but that's actually true. And I think I started being interested in beer first when I went to Germany.
I see.
I was studying in Lyon for a master in food science, and I made an Erasmus semester in Munich. Before that, I was just drinking commercial beer like every student, but I was not especially interested in it. In Munich, I really discovered good German beer. On the campus where I was studying, there was one of the oldest brewery in the world. It's a Weihenstephan. And there was a brewing degree. And I was not studying in that field, but in food science, but we had a course in sensory analysis. And there we were asked to taste beer during the course and to analyze the taste of it. I think I found that interesting because when you go more in depth of something and you have to analyze the taste of it, like searching for banana aromas or malt or caramel, I found it really interesting. I also love the smell in the air on the campus during brew days. So I started to be interested in that, and also I wasn't there during the Oktoberfest because it was not in this time of my semester. But I went to the Frühlingsfest. That's a smaller version of it, and I really loved the atmosphere. It was very friendly and warm. It changed my opinion about beer.
So you can thank the Germans for changing your opinions about beer.
And also after my studies, I went back to Germany for my first job. I was working there as an engineer in quality management in a ready-to-eat salad company. That's where I met my friend Mickael, who was a home brewer, and he introduced me to new kinds of beer, like American IPAs. Previously, he lived in Montreal, where there is a lot of home brewing there and modern craft breweries. So I started homebrewing with him, and I really loved it. I like the creative part of it.
And where is Mickael from originally?
He's from France, from the south of France, from Marseille. Then he studied in Montreal, and he went to Tübingen in the southwest Germany, where we met.
Yeah, so another French person who fell in love with beer, but this time in Montreal rather than Munich.
Yeah. It's like a virus. When you start to be interested in beer, you discover that there's a lot of possibilities with beer. And
it was this man, Mickael, who I met because the two of you came over to the UK a few years ago, and we met in Liverpool. Is that right? I remember you contacted me through Couchsurfing, and was curious if I was able to show you a few fine real ale pubs that we have in Liverpool. We have many, because in the UK there's this organization called CAMRA, which is trying to keep the real ale scene alive in the UK.
Yeah.
And I imagine for you, Morgane, that real ale was a beer that you probably had not had too much experience with, because it's quite a English style.
Yeah.
So when you came over, were you very curious to explore this type of beer?
Yeah, it's very traditional. Casks it's like small barrels where the beer is stored and served from, but it's not pressurized and it's not refrigerated. So the beer is served at room temperature with way less bubbles that we are used to. Yeah, it's very traditional in old pubs, but the popularity of it is decreasing. So there is Camera, which try to preserve that. So some pubs are certified by Camera, and they also organize festivals and events where you can drink beer only from casks. It's very unique to the UK. I think some breweries or some pubs here in Canada or in the US have sometime one line of beer from cask, but that's not very traditional. So it's interesting to try the real cask ale
I remember
in UK.
when I took the two of you around, we went to maybe half a dozen different places, and you were very excited to see all the different new styles of beer that you'd never seen before. And you were looking at the color, you were sniffing the top, you were analyzing all the beers, you and Mickael. You were always taking a half pint, which to me was very unusual because in the UK, no one ever buys a half pint because you always buy the full pint. But you explained to me that you both wanted to taste as many beers as possible without getting too drunk. That was a good strategy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not very big, so I can get drunk easily, and I prefer to have a lot of different beers than one beer that will get me drunk.
What was your expectation about the English real ale, and then was that satisfied, or was it better than you thought or worse than you thought?
I really liked it. There are a lot of different styles in the UK too. Actually, I think before coming to Liverpool, we were having a pub walk in the Peak District. That was the reason of our visit in the region. It was a hiking trip for a few days. It's actually a popular thing. There are a lot of pub walks in the UK. So you can hike from a pub to another in the countryside. It was really beautiful. I love the old pubs.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to walk to the next pub to earn your reward,
yeah.
and then walk to the next pub, and then beer is your reward.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good break in the day. You can fight against nettles around along the way and then have a nice beer.
Yeah. So it seems like you like the whole beer tourism. When you go to countries, you like to sample the local beers. So I was curious, Morgane, you've been obviously studying in Germany, which is where your love for beer originated.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably traveled around a few other countries, including the UK. So can you talk about where you've traveled through and what kinds of beers have you tasted along the way?
Well, at the beginning, I traveled mostly through Europe because it was closer and cheaper for me. There are traditional region where the beer is there is a very old tradition of brewing. Beers are more specific to a region, like in Belgium or Czech Republic. Yeah, of course, Germany and Austria. I also went to a bit in Scandinavia, Sweden and Norway. And then more recently, I went to California. There are very unique styles of beer in every country, even if now it's maybe more. I think, the beer from the US has a very strong influence on the beer we served in other country. We can find IPAs everywhere now. I like to taste the traditional styles when I go somewhere.
Do you think that the type of beers that people drink in certain regions is influenced by the culture, or is the culture influenced by the beer?
I think maybe both, but there are some. I think the countries which have a very old tradition of brewing are more maybe a bit more conservative.
Okay.
Yeah, in Belgium, I spoke with a new bar owner in Brussels. He was opening a craft beer bar with new styles like IPAs and fruit beers. And he told me that a lot of people were not happy with the type of beer he served because they prefer, a lot of people prefer traditional Belgian styles. And it's the same in Germany. They even have a law for protecting the beer. It's called the Reinheitsgebot. So it's the purity law. So to be able to call a drink a beer, you just have to use a maximum of four main ingredients: water, yeast, malt, and hops. Yeah, maybe I think some countries are a bit more open to other types of beer, but it's also coming a bit everywhere now. I think even in Germany now there are a lot of new breweries making all sorts of beer.
Yeah, I've had that same experience as you traveling around. I've found that a lot of German people, even ones that I have hosted here in the UK, I've taken them to a few bars in Liverpool, as I did with you. And it might be a newer type of pub or bar that will have the more craft beers, like the American style and influenced IPAs and things like that. The Germans, not always just Germans, but people who were coming from, like you were saying, more traditional beer regions, would be quite happy to taste one of these new styles of beer, but they would always prefer to drink a traditional Pils or a Weiss beer or something that they're used to from home. So this seems to be a trend. Have you come across this as well when you've been traveling?
People are attached to their traditional beer, and also in the US there are a big trend with the crazy beers like stout with lactose and marshmallows and banana, all sorts of things. But even in the US, they're also coming back to the classics, and German lagers are trendy also, and Czech pilsners. So I think it's moving and it's fluid, and you can also when I drink a traditional style, I like it to be quite authentic and close to the original beer from the country. But I also love to drink more crazy stuff like sour beers with fruits, or to play with the ingredients.
Yeah, I can imagine working in the industry, being able to be creative with different ingredients and things can really be quite inspirational as well. I remember I was in St. Louis in America years ago, and I stumbled across a brewery with a huge tap house joined to it. And it had a menu that was, from memory, I think, half orange and half blue. I think it was the orange beers down in the menu were all a traditional recipe, and all the blue beers were like experimental, crazy beers with herbs and spices and fruits and all kinds of things in it. So that actually made a lot of sense to me, because if you were feeling like you wanted to have a traditional or a specific regional taste of a beer, there were choices for you. But if you wanted to be a little bit more experimental and liberal, you could choose a weird beer that might be a more risky choice because you might not like it, but it'll be like a slap in the face of taste, you know?
Yeah, maybe you will remember it more.
Exactly. With all your travels, have you discovered that you have a particular favorite style of beer or a particular region of beer where you like the types of beers that they make there?
I like most styles of beer.
Okay.
I think my least favorites are the heavy, very sweet ones, high in alcohol, like maybe Belgian triples or barley wine. But otherwise, I like sour beers, IPA, stouts, classic blonde ale. A place which was very interesting to me was Norway, because they have very unique beers. I think probably Scandinavia in general, but I visited one brewery in particular in Oslo. Here in Norway, they have a very traditional style that used to be brewed in farms for the whole neighborhood. First, they didn't have hops, which is primarily used as preservative for the beer. So they used other types of antimicrobial plants like juniper. So juniper is used as an infusion to replace the brewing water, and the branches are also used as filter during the brewing process. They also use a very unique yeast named quake. That's a very tough yeast that you can harvest it during the fermentation, and you can harvest it on a wooden stick or wooden ring, and then leave it to dry, and then reuse it for the next batch of beer. And it gives a very unique taste, a very unique fruity taste. I found that very interesting. And when I visited Norway, I didn't have a car, so I didn't went to traditional farms or places where you can drink it. But there is one brewery in Oslo which recreates those beer and also had a modern twist.
Wow. I've never been to Norway. So would you say that that beer that you were tasting in Norway is so unique, or is it a little bit like another beer that people may have tasted before?
I think it's quite unique because of the use of juniper, and this yeast is actually is spreading now in the world because it's a very strong yeast, and it's easy to use, and it can ferment beer at very high temperature and very quickly. You can find quake yeast everywhere now, but until there I didn't really find this unique taste. Here in the brewery where I'm working now, we brew an IPA with this yeast, but it doesn't taste the same as what I tried in Norway.
Right. Do you remember the name of the place you visited in Norway where you tasted these beers?
Yeah, it's called Eikotid. It means oak and thyme.
And that's the name of the brewery?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was in Oslo, in the city centre, or more on the outskirts?
In the city centre. Now they have a tap room. They didn't have a tap room at this time, but yeah, it's a very nice place. I visited it, and I went there, and there were two sale people that gave me a private tour of the brewery.
Nice.
And it was very nice, very interesting. And they showed me a wooden bowl that we used to drink beer. It was a painted wooden bowl. It was 250 years old. It was crazy.
Wow.
Very Viking style.
Yeah. Have you had any funny stories where you've been traveling and tasting beers and there's been some kind of funny situation, or you've made a faux pas or anything like that?
Well, that's a classic, but once in Munich, I didn't specify what size of beer I wanted, so they brought me a mass. That's 1 whole liter of beer.
says the one who normally drinks a half pint. They give you a whole liter of beer.
Yeah, it's 4 times more, so it's drinkable, but I had to take my time, and until I reached the bottom, it has plenty of time to get warm.
Exactly. And how did you feel after that?
I think I felt okay, but maybe it took me 2 hours to drink it.
And was that during one of the festivals you were at?
No, I think it was in a Biergarten.
Right, and they just by default give you a whole liter of beer.
Yeah.
I remember I had to ask for a Grossbier when I was in Munich. I think to get the big one, I had to ask for the big beer.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, it's normally a half liter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is more manageable.
And also in Germany, they also serve a drink called Banana Weizen, and it's a Weizen beer is a wheat beer. So it's already tastes a bit like banana because of the yeast they use, and they mix it with half banana juice. So it's beer and banana juice, and it's quite heavy to drink.
I didn't know you could get banana juice.
Yeah.
When I was in the south of Germany, I actually was in Tübingen, funnily enough, where you were studying, because I had a friend there, Marian, who was studying also in Tübingen as well. It's a big student town, isn't it, Tübingen?
Yeah, exactly. Very nice.
We went around in Baden-Württemberg. Him and all his friends were obsessed with this Radler. And I'd never come across Radler before, because in the UK, I don't think we have the weather to drink that kind of beer. And I asked, what is a Radler? And he said it's like a mixture of a light beer with lemonade.
Yeah.
And it's delicious and refreshing. And in Australia, we kind of have that where we mix a beer with a lemonade and we call it a shandy. But in Australia, no man would ever drink one of those. Otherwise, he'd be called less of a man.
Okay.
It's kind of like you don't drink a half pint in the UK, you drink a pint kind of thing. So anyway, being in Germany and being recommended this drink, I thought I should taste it. But I didn't really like it. It was very, very sweet. I like a bitter beer, and this was like a very lemonade-y, sweet, fizzy beer. And also there were so many wasps around, and the wasps were obsessed with the sugars and the beers. And they were going everywhere. It was nuts.
Oh.
So what do you think about Radler? Because I imagine you must have had that during your time studying in Germany as well, right?
Yeah. I think at the beginning I really liked Radler. It's at the time I didn't really like bitter beer. It was my favorite kind of beer. During my first exchange in Germany in high school, I really was in love with Radler because it's so easy to drink. But then I learned that it's actually Radler. It's meant to cycle. Radler means a cyclist. It can be manly because it's
okay.
I mean, it's not as shameful because it's a beer that you have to drink while cycling or during sports. It's a light beer, light in alcohol. I think it's about 3% alcohol or even less. Instead of drinking water during sport or after cycling, you can have a Radler.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
For me, it's a bit too sweet, but yeah, it's quite sweet, but I like the lemony taste of it.
Now, you've been exploring lots of places, specifically going to see what the beers are like there, and actual breweries as well. So I was curious, Morgane, have you got any favorite breweries or places that you've been specifically for the tasting of the beer? Where are they and why these places?
Actually, I really like the place where I'm working. They have a beautiful terrace. It's in front of the sea, so when it's open in the summer, and it's just next to my job. So after work, I can have a beer here, and that's beautiful. You can see the ocean, and you can watch the lobster fishing boats coming. I really like it. And I also like the Biergarten in Germany, also because it's outside and under the trees. I really like the atmosphere of it. And there is also special food to accompany the beer.
And what is that?
Biergarten food. Big pretzels, some sort of cheese paste, a lot of different meat. I mean, salami or things like that, and potato salad.
Delicious.
There are some sort of dishes that are only meant to be eaten in beer gardens,
and hence they give it its own word. Do you speak German, Morgane? Yeah. So you got 3 languages now, or more?
3.
And how are you finding speaking French in Quebec? Is it quite different from the French you speak in France, or is it normal for you?
Yeah, a lot of expressions are different. That's funny because Quebec is promoting French speaking. Most of the, for example, movie titles are only in French, but also in the day life they use a lot of English words.
Yes.
But it's interesting. Yeah, a lot of words are different, or a lot of they use some word that we don't use anymore in France.
Yeah, I've heard. Some people have described it as it's like speaking Shakespearean English, like English that we used to speak about 400 years ago. So,
for some words.
Yeah, a lot of the words have evolved.
Exactly.
So you're now working at a brewery in rural Quebec called Pit Caribou. So I was curious, how exactly did you get to working in this brewery? What were the steps involved in? I imagine there must have been some kind of qualification. Did you come to Canada specifically for working in a brewery? Are you with a sponsorship? And importantly, I was very curious, are there that many female brewers?
So I was working in the after working in the food industry, I decided that I wanted to make something more concrete and then work in beer professionally. So I found a job in Lyon in a microbrewery, and I worked there for almost 2 years. But I was applying for a visa in Canada. It's a lottery, so I didn't exactly know when I would get it. But in this time, I met the former owner of Pit Caribou in France. He was visiting some friends and making some collaboration brews in France. So I met him here, and I told him about the visa, and I really wanted to work in Canada and in Quebec because here there is a lot of interesting microbreweries. He offered me to work for him for a few months when I would get my visa. So when I got it, he was the first person I asked for a job, and I didn't really know the region of Gaspésie, and yeah, it's very rural, but that's a beautiful region. So when I arrived here, I really liked it, and I arrived in the middle of winter. It was very special because that's a touristic region here, but in the winter there is not much happening here, and it's very cold and very snowy. But
not much happening, but a lot of snow.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I like the view and the sympathy of people and the brewery, and I was learning a lot of new things because they have a lot of different beers, and they put beer in oak barrels and make sour beer. So I decided to stay there instead of changing breweries every 6 months as I planned at the beginning. Also, the pandemic happened, so I was better here in rural Quebec than in the city.
Bit safer.
Yeah.
One
not that much impacted here. And for the female brewers, there are not that many, but there are more and more. It's still a very masculine industry, but it's also evolving. And there is an association of women involved in the craft beer industry. It's called the Pink Boot Society.
Okay.
So they gather, they make events or festivals, and there is a forum where you can ask questions about beer or a beer business. Yeah, but it's still very masculine. There was some sort of bomb exploding in the craft beer community because a lot of women reported sexist discrimination or harassment on an Instagram account. They told about moments where they were victims of discrimination in the brewery in the US.
Okay.
But they have a growing presence in craft beer. Yeah.
If somebody asked you in the street, what do you do? And you said, I'm a brewer, what would be their reaction typically?
They are impressed. It leads to too many questions, and I think it's not very usual now to see female brewers. Yeah, people like it. I think a lot of people like beer, so
it's a good way to connect with people.
Yeah.
You're the beer expert, and they like to drink
definitely.
beer, so lots of questions will come.
It's also more easy to visit breweries as a brewer. But craft beer community is very open and willing to share. So when you go to a brewery and say that you're a brewer, there is a good chance that you will get a tour of the brewery, or the people will offer you some beer.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's a nice community.
Do you have to just say that you're a brewer, or do you have to have a little ID card that says, I'm a brewer?
No, I don't have that. I think they trust us.
I might try that next time I go to a nice brewery somewhere. I'll say, hey, I'm actually a brewer. Can I get some free beer?
Yeah. Yeah, it will probably work.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try it. We'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
How has your traveling influenced the way you brew beer? I'm just curious because I'm thinking if you at Pit Caribou, if you're able to, let's say, let's create a brand new beer, or let's create our own version of maybe a traditional style of beer. Has traveling influenced you and given you ideas of certain things you might want to try in the future with making beer?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you travel, you have the opportunity to try the authentic version of a beer. Like we said in the UK, I tried the traditional English beers and cask beer. Also in Germany, I tried the most authentic version of Weiss beer or lagers. So it's easier to reproduce a recipe when you have tried the authentic version of it, I think. And also, yeah, you can take some inspiration from other country. Like I would like also to try a Nordic type of beer with juniper and a raw beer. You can also play with the different ingredients. For example, I made a beer with apricot and verbena. Here, people were quite surprised of this association of fruit and herbs. I think in France it's original, but it's quite common association. Apricot and verbena. I already ate it in ice creams, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it. I know it goes well together. So I think it's you can get some good inspiration while traveling for brewing new beers.
When I was traveling in Belgium a few years ago now, I'd never heard of this, but my friend was telling me about the Trappist, the beer that is brewed by monks, and it's part of their duties and obligations to make beer, and the beer they make is special beer, and it's really delicious. That whole idea blew me away because I'd never come across anything like that growing up in Australia, where beer is like religion, and part of their religious or meditative duties is to make beer, delicious beer. What do you think about that as a brewer? I'm sure you're aware of the Trappist styles of beers and the monk beer and how it has mostly in Belgium, but some in the Netherlands, and also apparently there's a place in the UK too. Would you ever see brewing beer as a religion, or can you see how that could happen? What's your thoughts on that?
The aspect of it is very traditional, but it's funny because I would love to see how it looks like, because we imagine the monks with in a very traditional setting, and but I mean, if they produce big quantities of beer, it probably looks like a regular brewery with stainless and gumboots and so I would love to see that, but I think I wouldn't be allowed to visit a brewery as a woman. A colleague told me that he wanted to visit a Trappist brewery with a female friend, and she wasn't allowed in the brewery because they are monks. So
Right, no distractions.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
But it's interesting. I think it's important to keep such old traditions too.
With all your travels around Europe and afar, have you discovered where the biggest beer drinkers are?
I think it's in Czech Republic. I think per capita, I read that they drink about, in average, 150 liters per person and per year. That's crazy. But
wow.
Yeah, I think I can understand, because the beer is very cheap there.
And delicious.
Yeah, delicious and easy drinking. And there were also places historically where it was safer to drink beer than water, because beer is boiled and it has antiseptic properties.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm back in medieval times in the UK too, when water was poisonous most of the time. They would drink wine. Even children would drink wine and various alcoholic beverages, because that was at least something to drink, where the water would probably kill them. Crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine if that happened now.
Yeah. We would be drunk all the time.
Right, Morgane, it's time for
My Favorite 4.
Morgane, are you ready?
Yeah.
What is your favorite food or cuisine? or drink?
Oh, I think I love Italian cuisine.
I thought you were going to say beer.
Yeah, beer, of course. Also, yeah.
Do you have a favorite Italian dish?
Of course, I like pizza. Also, all sort of pasta.
Hmm. What is your favorite airline?
Airline.
Mm.
Oh, I think I didn't use that many airlines, but I think, well, Air France has a good good food on board. Otherwise, I also like Lufthansa.
No doubt. Germany.
Yeah.
They know how to fly.
Yeah.
What is your favorite foreign word? So when I say foreign word, it won't be foreign to you, for example, because you already speak 3 languages. But to an English person, a non-English word, do you have a favorite foreign word?
I think I like the German word gemütlich. It's there is no good translation in English, but it means cozy and warm and friendly.
Okay. And would that describe like a restaurant or a house or a person or a ambiance or something?
Yeah, more an ambiance or a pub. They say it, for example, in the Oktoberfest, they say Gemütlichkeit, and it means friendliness and warmness.
In the atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not yet a trendy word like Hygge or yeah,
Probably
it's a concept.
A little bit harder to say. I mean, hygge is already hard enough for English people to say, so yeah, those extra syllables in German make it even harder.
Yeah, they can make very long words.
And lastly, what is your favorite film?
I really like Back to the Future.
Number 1?
Back to the Future. Yeah.
The first one. Yeah, that's a good one. Classic. Well, there you go. Smash that.
My favorite 4.
Morgane, I wanted to ask you, do you think beer is a good way to make connections with other people when traveling?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good way to break the ice between people. First of all, because we are a bit disinhibited thanks to the alcohol, and also because I think beer is a very popular and accessible drink. It's not as to me, it's not as formal as wine. It's more affordable, and almost everyone likes beer. It's a good way to meet with people, to have a beer together.
Yeah, totally. Now, after COVID, where would you like to go travel outside of Canada, maybe, and experience beer and culture in the future when it's possible?
I would like to visit South America because I never went there and it seems very different. I would like to go to Mexico and Cuba. Yeah, it's not too far, and also for the past years I traveled mostly in cold countries. So I would enjoy a little bit of warmth and sun. More related to beer, I would love to see in Finland there is a Sati brewing competition with that's a beer also made with juniper, and there is a competition once a year where people gather to brew very small batches in wooden barrels, and it seems nice to see.
Do you think if you say you're a brewer, you'll get in for free to those places as well?
I don't know. It's probably very far. Yeah, it will. I think I will. I don't know how much it costs. I'm not. I didn't check it in depth yet, but it will be just interesting.
Right. So you are working now at the brewery called Pit Caribou, and where exactly is that? What's the name of the town that it is in, and how will people get there if they wanted to come and see you and taste the beers that you're making?
It's in Gaspésie. It's at the very end. It's the end of the land. I think the biggest town nearby is Gaspé, and in the native language it means the end of the land. Pit Caribou is situated next to Percé, which is a quite touristic city, and it's famous for it's big rock in the sea. There is a rock with the hole in it, and percé means pierced. So Pit Caribou is right next to this city. There is the Pit Caribou pub in Percé, and the brewery is a bit further, maybe 10 minutes drive from there.
Nice. Well, Morgane, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been a great chat, and yeah, hopefully one day I can get back traveling again and we can maybe meet and have another beer.
Oh yeah, I would love that. Thank you for hosting me.
Thanks for listening to the Nostalgic Vagabond. I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation, and if you would like to listen to other interesting talks on travel, there are more podcasts available. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts. And for updates, just follow me at the Nostalgic V. Don't forget, your journey is special. Own it. I've been Alan Hill. Until next time.
Hey guys, if you enjoy listening to the Nostalgic Vagabond, why not support the podcast? If you haven't already, subscribe and you'll be notified when new eps drop. You can also support the podcast by leaving a rating or a review on your podcast app. Why not share this episode? Tell your friends about it if something resonated with you. Word of mouth is great promotion. If you're into social media, maybe post a screenshot of the episode or upload the link on your profile so your mates can see what interesting content you've been into lately. All your support comes straight back and helps to keep the travel content and nostalgia of this podcast going. Cheers. So don't forget to subscribe.